Okay, we are now recording. Today is Monday, 15th of June, and we're having a informal lecture on Akhenaten, and then at the end of it, I'd like to create opportunity to have a journey. So I will try and speak quickly. Now, I always have a little bit of trouble when it comes to share screen. Okay, share screen. Okay, and share this. Okay, so hopefully now you can see my screen. You see a picture of Akhenaten with the writing Akhenaten, Wisdom and Legacy. Just let me know if that is working. What I see. Your screen sharing. So says, okay. So we're good to go. So, oh, somebody's, sorry, one moment. When I get chats, it's difficult to read it. Yes, I see it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's amazing. So many people are drawn to the Pharaoh Akhenaten, 18th Dynasty, Egypt. He was the son of Amenhotep and his great royal wife, Queen Tai. And for those of you that don't know, I actually live here. Where I live, I'm in Luxor, West Bank in Egypt. And he was born literally here, where this house is built. Was originally the palace of Amenhotep. Why are we having beeping? Oh, admit. Okay. I have to admit people as they come in, so hopefully they'll all arrive together. Welcome, welcome everyone. We're only just starting. Yeah, so I was just sharing that I live by the original palace of Amenhotep. So this is whether they were born here, but potentially this is where they grew up. So Akhenaten or Akhenaten would have possibly walked these lands where I am sending this information to you today. So it's very, very timely for us to be looking at his legacy, looking at the wisdom that he left. If some of you don't know about the Imaginarium is a group with the intention to hold a field of consciousness and to connect each other through the vibratory field. And one of the reasons why we created Imaginarium is so that we can leave seeds of information, or seeds of love, let's call it, seeds of wisdom, seeds of what we are in this moment for future generations. And I will talk about this now, but so much of what the legacy that was left by this Pharaoh, his ability to speak truth and to go against pretty much everyone in his time. I have a sense that his family, his mother, his father, were close to his understanding. He was being, in a sense, initiated by his family, by his father and mother, and he took upon himself to make changes. Where is my, oh, here. So this is the Pharaoh Akhenaten, one of the statues found in Amarna. This is, I believe, in the Great Cairo Museum. As you know, the museum is moving to a new location in Cairo by the pyramids. If you've visited I guess this is the original museum, It is a beautiful building, and it's a fascinating place. And they're building this new Cairo museum, so a lot of the artifacts are already waiting for the new museum to open. I know we're not traveling at the moment, so I'm just letting you know that whenever you visit Egypt again, a lot of the artifacts, a lot of what will be on display on the time of the 18th dynasty, especially Akhenaten and Amarna, will be in the new museum. So that will be exciting if you already visited. So here he is looking at us. As you can see, his features are very different to the rest of the depictions of the pharaohs. If you have been curious about Egypt and the different dynasties, and if you came here, you see that one waiting. I don't have a button for this one. One moment. Oh yes, here. Okay. One more person coming in. Welcome. You will see that the pharaohs depict themselves very powerfully, very strongly, and very masculine. And also a lot of the pharaohs depict themselves smithing their enemies. And this is not the case with the pharaoh who was his father, Amenhotep III, and certainly Akhenaten. So I like to believe that his interpretation of the sun was love, and that he foresaw what was coming. He was one of the ones that I believe. So I'd like to just clarify that a lot of what I'm going to talk about is my own research and my own perception. I'm writing a book on this timeline, and a lot of what I'll share with you is channeled information. As you know, I told you a minute ago that I live here, and it's part of what is going in my book. So it is not by any means the archaeological insights, research, and debatable history that is being written or taught. It's a lot of this is my own interpretation. So take all of it, some of it as you will, yeah. So this is what I'm saying. Archaeology and Egyptologists have been very busy since, I forget the date, I think it was 1940s when they first found Tutankhamun's grave or burial chamber, and a lot more information about Akhenaten, or about what Akhenaten was about, which was the Aten, came to light. So as you can see, not a lot it's available. A lot of it is still the first people that were excavating at Tel El Amarna and have found the tombs have written about it and their insights. So a lot of it, it's only very new, really. It's the last 60-80 years. So as I said, he is the son of Amenhotep III and Queen Tai, and he is of the lineage of Hatshepsut. Now, if you followed the information of her birth, if you were ever curious about the Pharaoh S, who is of royal lineage and becomes regent queen, so she becomes Pharaoh, and she's depicted as wearing a false beard, so as to represent herself as masculine, so she could be a pharaoh reigning during her dynasty time. She was one of the amazing, how I see her, she was a high priestess of Amun, and Amun is the form of God, if you like, the form of the creator force, that she becomes the divine child of Amun and her mother, So interestingly, in her temple, if you visited, you would have seen there is a part where it's actually being portrayed her her birth, her divine birth through the light, through a moon, and she calls herself the divine wife of a moon, but also the daughter of a moon. A few of the high priestesses who were pharaohesses call themselves the wife of a moon, the divine wife of a moon. So she had a knowledge. She was of the lineage, and she was an initiate of ancient wisdom. That I'm talking about Hatshepsut. She was an initiate of the wisdom of divine birth, which meant she would have been impregnated through the light, and she would have come through as a god, half human, on the planet. This is one perspective. Another perspective we could look at is that she comes from cosmic lineage, and that she knew about it, and she left information in the temples to say that what she was bringing through was very much information from out of planet. And if you read a little bit about what is said about her, she was certainly very powerful, and all of her deeds, all that she left was for the people. So she was the one who built the Hatshepsut. It's called the Hatshepsut mortuary temple. Obviously she was not buried there, but this is what history and archaeology calls it, which is an amazing place, and it's built in this mountain which is just behind my house. A very powerful energy on earth. So not only she built this temple, but a lot of the pharaohs and queens and kings and the children were buried in this mountain. Yes, I have more to say about that, but I'll stop here. So Hatshepsut was a part of the lineage, so she was before the time of Akhenaten. And she began something that I feel is very important. She began a way of connecting the people back to what she called a moon, instead of letting the people look at herself and look at her power. She writes, one of her obelisks is fallen in the temple of Karnak. And so they were able to read, because they're very, very tall, they were able to read that what she set out to do was to leave a legacy for future generations. She set out to leave a legacy for humanity carved in the stones. And for me personally, the obelisks are points on Earth. So again, where Earth's energies meet. Some of you know about ley lines, especially in the Celtic lands. Egypt is also a very powerful place with many power points and nodal points, where the electromagnetics of the Earth and this particular energies meet, and so they're like vortices. If you've been to Sedona, you know a lot of Sedona is those points of light, those points of energy. So Hatshepsut built obelisks to pin down and to bring in cosmic light into the planet. So going back to Akhenaten, his reign was 17 years long. So it wasn't a very long reign in terms of a pharaoh's time in power, but certainly he succeeded, at least I feel, my own perspective is that he succeeded to create massive change, to create massive potential for humanity at that time, to at least begin to see things differently. So this is one of the famous carvings from the time of Amarna. So his city, he moved everybody. So before that, the capital where all the pharaohs lived was here, what is now called Luxor. It was called Thebes. And he moved 400 kilometers north, still on the Nile, at a place that he called Akhenaten, the place of the rising Aten. And obviously he called the Aten the sun. And so here, if you haven't seen this before, take a good look. This is Pharaoh Akhenaten and his beloved great wife, Queen Nefertiti, and 3 of their children. And he is the only pharaoh. He is the only pharaoh depicted as family, you know, with the wife and himself the same size. Often the pharaohs were depicting themselves and their wives as a tiny kind of half a leg size, and them standing tall and just kind of the wife reaching to the knee. It was still honoring of their great wife, because they had portrayed her next to them, but obviously as a minor power, where Akhenaten was very much a par. They believe, a lot of historians believe, that they co-reigned together during the time. So talking about co-regency, Akhenaten was born as Amenhotep IV, and he co-reigned with his father for 4 to 5 years. So I'm going to change the picture now, but have a good look at the Aten and how the rays of light are coming down on them, and how the end of the atom, if you can see, and if your screen is good and you've got glasses, if you need glasses, there are little hands bringing down, like almost giving something from, you know, from within the light of the sun and beyond the light of the sun. And there are little ankhs at the end. So the ankh is the symbol of life, also the symbol of power, but energy, life force. So very much depicting that direct connection through the sun and direct connection to life force on this carving. So he was born of Amenhotep, and he was born as Amenhotep IV, and it meant Amun, the god, is satisfied. And he then later changed his name to Akhenaten, effective of the Aten, or the one who worked for the Aten, or sometimes it's translated as the truth of the Aten. So he was very much the one that brought truth to earth through the rays of light, through the sun and beyond the sun. So just a little bit to tell you about his family. He had a brother that died before him, so he was not necessarily being groomed as being the next pharaoh, but so was his destiny to become it. He had 5 sisters who were quite famous. 3 of the sisters, I believe, become what is known great wives of the king. So in effect, in my perspective, they weren't necessarily being married to their father, but they were kept in the palace. So the father allowed them to not be married and be, you know, sent away, but they could have their in a sense power and remain in the palace. But of course, it wasn't uncommon for brother and sister to marry, or half brother and half sister to marry. I'm not sure if it would be the case that father and daughter would marry, but certainly 3 of them have carried the title of great royal wife of their father. Sorry, my neighbors are out. This picture, by the way, is one of the originals of the time of Malkata. Malkata is now only just a footprint on the sand. If you come here to visit me, I'll take you there. But this is one of the original paintings of the floor. And as you can see, it's lotus and marshes and birds in flight. And the birds in flight represents the soul that is free. So the marshes were interpretations of the original seeding of creation of the planet. They interpreted everything through nature. So the marshes were the beginning of nature in the history of planet Earth. Lotus being one of the sacred plants, and the flying soul, meaning that the soul never dies, the soul is free. I may actually go and close the door. I will make a little bit of noise, so I'm going to maybe mute myself, because they're very loud here. It's been a beautiful day. So I'm just gonna mute my audio. Have a 2-second break. Okay, can you hear me? I just unmuted myself again. Okay, thank you. So he was married to Nefertiti. We know that he was his great royal wife. His co-regency was 45 years. He had 6 daughters that are recorded and are well depicted with Nefertiti. Their names are here, so I won't try and pronounce them. Akhenaten is a famous one. A lot is being told about her. Some people believe that she was the pharaoh's daughter that becomes Skota. Some people believe that she becomes the successor of Akhenaten. It's all, conjecture right now, maybe forever. So, but she becomes quite a famous one. And of course, Hatshepsut is a famous one because she becomes the great royal wife of Tutankhamun. So she changes her name from Hatshepsut to Ankhesenamun when at the end of the Amarna period, at the end of Akhenaten's. So I'm not going to go into history too much. I'm just giving you a little bit, and I know it sounds very long, but I'm going to go into something else in a second. So just to say that also Tutankhamun changes his name from Tutankhaten to Tutankhamun. So what did he do? What was Akhenaten about? Certainly know that he's known as a heretic pharaoh. He's known as a rebel. He's known as the one who comes to change the ways of ancient Egypt. The main religion here was about the Netters, was about the cosmic forces known as the gods and goddesses of Egypt. They were not worshipped as gods and goddesses, but they were interpretation of cosmic forces. And his ultimate desire was to harness that and bring everybody, so bring the people at the time straight into the light of the sun and beyond the sun. So connecting to, as I said, the life force, the energy of the sun, the atom. Again, notice the hands bringing the ankh, bringing the symbol of life back down towards the pharaoh and his wife. So yeah, this is the big question. Why would any pharaoh, why would Akhenaten take upon himself to bring the end of gods worshipping and ceremonies that were held sacred and that were only created and held by the priests in the temples? So this is a time, just to give you a little bit more of information if you don't know it, this was a time where no different to a day like today, the religion was becoming very powerful and the priesthood had power. And from the time of the priestesses, a lot that we know, which is ancient knowledge that was here in Egypt before even this time, there were priestesses, there were oracles here, right here, the oracle temples, the priestesses, the divine births initiations were here. You know, the schools of Isis. Isis was seen as the earth. She was seen as the divine mother, birthing from the seed of her beloved brother and husband, from the seed of a deceased brother. So she was bringing from death to life. So she was weaving the alchemy of death to life, and she was weaving the alchemy of the soul. So this is ancient lands, and the priests had, obviously the knowledge continues somehow, and it becomes such a thing that only the priests of Amun are in charge of it. And even in the temples, only a few people can enter. The main people get to enter if they have anything to say to the priests in the main part of the temple, but not they would not have been allowed into the Holy of Holies. So it was becoming so that the great icons were only seen once, you know, in the Apet ceremonies and in the festivals, and the priests were becoming very powerful, not unlike what happened, you know, later in many other timelines where religion takes over, and a lot of the people left outside the temple, not only the ones with power and certainly money, were allowed inside the knowledge how to access consciousness through light. So what another interesting thing is that, so why would he have done this? Why would he have taken upon himself? And as I mentioned, he is of the lineage of Hatshepsut, the pharaoh that transforms herself as a male to take on the regency, because she felt it was her destiny to bring about the request of her father, the god Amun. So to change a little bit history, she had to change herself into male. As I said before, she was never depicting herself as the powerful queen that was smiting the enemies, that was going to war, but she was depicting herself as the daughter and the voice of the creative force, which was in that case called Amun. So interesting that she changes herself for a purpose, and he changes himself for a purpose. He is portraying himself, as you can see in this picture, very much feminine, you know, with a soft belly, almost like a belly that has given birth, that has had, you know, a human fetus growing and then, you know, becoming soft like a mother. So very much portraying, I feel, the balance of masculine and feminine, but in many ways bringing alignment that both men and women could be powerful. As you saw earlier, he brings his great royal wife, Queen Nefertiti, a par. He depicts himself a par with her. So one interpretation, certainly how I see it, is that Hatshepsut brought something to the forefront, and she was the beginning, like the beginning of the wave, and he carried the wave. So there was a gap of, I think, 3 pharaohs, and then he brings the wave to a completion. And it looks like, you will see in a minute, it looks like the 17-year reign. His 17-year reign is lost. But wait a moment, we'll get there. So what was his purpose as bringing people back to the light? And I know you're already having answers trickling in, or you're already connected so much to this lineage, so you know, you have a deep sense of what was the purpose of bringing to the forefront, you know, leaving behind the games of men that were the priesthood of Amun and their games of power in the temple, and bringing the people back to cosmic light. So a way of accessing consciousness, accessing the pineal gland. And most of you will know that the pineal gland is made of cells, which are, what are they? Photons, I think, right? Yes. That it's made of photons. So photons are cells that receive light. So they're receivers, and I think, yeah, transmitters of light. So they have this ability to respond to light. And this is why, you know, we talk about the eyes as being the light of the soul, because so much of light from the sun is activating the pineal gland. And in the Native American traditions, and certainly the Mayan traditions, a lot of it, pre-Columbian traditions, they were worshipping the sun, and they were very much, you know, prostrate, is that how you say? No, prostrated to the sun. So they gave themselves to the sun, and they gave their eyes to the sun, bringing light into the pineal gland through the optical nerves, into, you know, through the brain, activating the pineal gland and accessing higher consciousness. Obviously, there was possibly active ingredients happening, herbs and entheogenics, like the lotus that is very well displayed here in Egypt was entheogenic. So I'm sure they were using herbs and plants to access consciousness with the sun. So, as I said, the priesthood of Amun, did he know that? Did he see the future? Could he foretell what was coming? Not long after that, it was the destruction of many of the priestesses, initiatic locations, initiatic temples. There was a temple here to Mut, M-U-T, and she is the mothering aspects of Sekhmet. So just now going back into ancient Egyptian culture and ancient Egyptian deities. It was not really a religion, but it was their way of accessing cosmic forces. A lot of the divine birth, initiation, priestessing schools were being given up, and a lot of, if you may have memories of priestesses and what happened to them. So if you do, then I honor you, because it's quite a memory to access. So through the atom, connection to the wisdom of the cosmos and the star lineage. So a lot is being said that the Anunnaki were here, that they were one of the cedar races. If you followed history, a lot of the connections from ancient Egypt connects with Sumeria, and the beings in Sumeria are very much alien looking depictions of vessels and crafts and machinery and bird looking people. And so certainly he was guiding the people to go back to their own lineage, or to remember their own lineage, rather than following what was happening with the law of man. So as I said before, a lot of the information that we know today is not very old. It's only from what they excavated in Tel El Amarna, and I'll show you a picture in a minute. Not a lot is available from Amarna because it was destroyed. Very interestingly, it's just wiped out, the whole city. So what happens after? So this is a digital image of what Amarna would have looked like, his great city of the sun, Akhenaten. And as you can see by the edge of the Nile, and if you have memories of this time, if you feel you were part of the story, you will have a sense that it was a joyous place, that it was a place of great rejoicing. And there was not the temples, they had no ceiling, so that you were always in communion with the light during the daylight hours. And this is another depiction, as you can see, of it was a great city, not only temples but buildings and palaces and workshops and many great and wonderful things. And this is what it looks today. I'm sorry, it's a bit pixelated or unpixelated. It's just a desert. When you visit, if you come or if you have been, you have seen it. It's just a desert. Nothing much is left except the tombs. The tombs, some of them are still beautiful, and you can still see a lot of the carvings on the walls, but the actual city is all gone. It's no longer there. So a lot of the information of what we think Akhenaten was about, its interpretation from what has been found, which is just pieces of carved stone, but really not a lot is found. So how do we go about finding out who Akhenaten was and what was his legacy to this point? So what would be the point of being so curious about the past if we cannot access it and translate it for a time as now? So I had to look, and a lot of people that I looked into this have gone into the prehistory of the Essenes. So the recordings, their writings from these people, one being Josephus Flavius and Philo of Alexandria and Pliny the Elder, they all record of people with great knowledge, of a brotherhood of light, of people that carried great wisdom from ancient Egypt. So if you were upset by seeing what happened to Tel el Amarna and Akhenaten's great quest to bring the people back to the light, his knowledge and his wisdom was not lost. His knowledge and wisdom was somehow protected, as always is. Great truths are always protected and remain alive for future generations. So these people write of the existence of the Essenes, these people, the Brotherhood of Light, as they were known, and they are said to exist since time immemorial, a race by themselves, more remarkable than any other in the world. So they carried great wisdom, great knowledge, great truth, the Essenes. And they are connected to Enoch. If you read the book of Enoch, and if you're connected to the stories of Moses and what is in the New Testament, a lot of it has become religion and has been integrated in religion. The Torah, the Church of Rome, the Quran. As we know, a lot of what, the same as the time of the priesthood of Hamun, there's always a time where we're in this universe of polarity, so there will be the dark and the light, and the opportunity to bring truth through from the dark to the light and bring balance again. So interestingly, Enoch was said to represent the seventh generation of humanity. It's supposed to be the seventh generation since the first man. So interestingly, again, returning to the wisdom of the Native Americans, of the original people of the northern plains of what's now known as United States, they hold very much this belief that we belong to the earth and that we are to care for Earth Star, as they call it, and that, or Turtle Island, and that we are to do the best we can for the 7 generations. It's interesting, as if whatever happens, the cycle of 7 generations, and then the light comes through again, or the light quotient comes through again into the truth. So maybe some transliteration of what it may be, and some games of power, and then truth is brought forward again. And I have to say that, I think I've written about this, but I have to say that so much of what we do today, even what we're doing today in this group, we may think that we are listening to a lady in Egypt, sharing a little bit about her insights, her own interpretation of what the Aten was, and who Akhenaten was being on the planet. But we're holding a field of consciousness. Here's my little kitty, come to join you. We're holding a field of consciousness. As we are tuning into that timeline, time. If you can perceive this as timeline being flexible and then not really being closed in an ancient past, we're talking about 3,500 years ago, and yet it is a time in the continuum that is very present now. So and if you are very in tune and very attuned to the field, you can pick up a lot of information that I'm not sharing. So pick up a lot of what is present in the field. And likewise, our group in this moment is holding a vibration and leaving that in the field, so that, people, maybe somebody is watching a movie or something, and all of a sudden feels the desire to research about Akhenaten and finds the truth of their soul. Like, we just don't know what we're doing in the moment, but the more that we are conscious of the moment, the more we are able to perceive, receive, and inform the field of consciousness for the 7 generations and beyond and beyond. So it is certainly recorded in history that the Essenes have their root in Egypt during the 18th dynasty. So both Hatshepsut and Akhenaten are in the 18th Egyptian dynasty. So his information was not lost. Here's a painting of, I'm sorry, I forgot to record who the painting was. Yes, I can't remember. A painting of potentially Essenes and the light, potentially the time of Moses and the light on Mount Sinai. But for me, it's a beautiful depiction of, being with the earth and being with the light and being with oneself, as well as being with the group, as being with this initiatic brotherhood. It is said that they wore white because that was their way of expressing the light. And as you know, a lot of groups have taken that interpretation or copied that interpretation, and certainly the Kundalini, I think the Kundalini wave of yoga wears white. So how much of the knowledge of sound and movement is, brought over by yoga, by the ancient, and by the way, it's not separate. So when we're talking about ancient Egypt, we are also talking about ancient India in the times of the Vedas. It's the same teachings, the same recordings, as I said before, the same in the times of Mesopotamia and the times of Central America. If you follow the trail, if you really follow the trail, I promise you get back to Africa. But it's contemporary throughout time. The same knowledge becomes contemporary throughout time. So as I said, they were known as the Brotherhood of Light. Possibly the group was created during the time of Thutmose III. Thutmose III is the half-brother of Hatshepsut. They were married, and then when he dies, she becomes co-regent with his son, her stepson. So the purpose of protecting the knowledge of the wisest teachings of the seeders of the planet, interplanetary galactic intelligence. So if you study a little bit, and maybe you are an Egyptologist, you would have studied the glyphs according to Mr. Rosetta, and his interpretation is so much about the parallel of three carvings, three languages. And so his interpretation becomes the teachings for archaeologists in the glyphs in the temples, but with every symbol, it has levels and dimensions, and so a lot of the information left in the temples today, not only Egypt, but it's certainly in the Celtic lands, a lot of stones are carved with runes, with the Om symbols. They are vibrations of interplanetary galactic intelligence. So it's never what it seems. I feel that there's always more to the story. So initiates from around the wisest corners of earth came to Egypt to study. So Egypt had a lot of the knowledge and remained as one of the places where knowledge was gathered and studied. This is interesting. The name Essenes comes from potentially secret or silence, or Esaios, meaning the light and truth. And certainly Akhenaten was about truth, light and truth. Also the word Isaiah means doctor, and translated that into Greek would be therapeut, and the therapeut is the part of the Essenes that teaches, or Mary Magdalene is one of the initiates. She is on the Delta, and she goes to, we believe, Lake Mariotis, and she is trained there in the ways of the healing arts, healing the body and healing the way back to the light, back to the soul and divine birth, and bringing death back to life and the transfiguration. This is how she assists Yeshua, the great avatar that the Essenes are preparing to receive. I didn't put it in this lecture because I didn't want it to be too long, but Yeshua is born as one of the Essenes. Joseph, his father, is the one who marries Mary, his mother, is an Essene, and Mother Mary is an initiate of the Essenes. She comes to Egypt and she becomes an initiate of Isis, of Hathor, and she studies in the great libraries of Alexandria, and she studies with the Essenes in Lake, I don't know how to pronounce it, Maurice, I think, in the Delta on the Nile here, north of here. So throughout time, people return, humanity returns here to gather knowledge that was brought through, potentially through the sun, through Akhenaten, through the cosmic lineage. And also what is really, really important to see here is that Esania, so they call themselves Esania, hence Essenes, meaning the sons of the sun, the sons of the light. I'm gonna have to move through here, otherwise it's gonna be too long. So the Essenes worked with wholeness, so they worked with mind, body, and emotions. They really believed in the field of consciousness. They really believe that whatever we thought we created, as we know today, but we have lost it throughout time. But they were keepers of this knowledge, and certainly they would have infused the field of consciousness with all of these teachings, so that we can now access it in this moment. So the body was seen as a vessel in which to navigate reality. We know this, but it's interesting, a lot of this was lost throughout the ages. We're just beginning now to tune in. Before, this knowledge was kept by the alchemists, by the people that studied the arcana, by the people of mystery schools, mystics, and people that the very few that were initiated, the Cathars, the Templars. So the mind was seen as the inner manifestation of creator of emotions. So how important it is, the teaching from times 3,500 years ago to now. This is what it's being spoken about. This is what we are all tuning in as awakened souls at a time like this, at a very particular time when we are just creating the big shift in this year of 2020. So knowing that we at the time and now we have the power to manifest through universal force, and that we are the the masters of our own mind, and mastering the mind, mastering emotions, that masters creation, the masters this time. So they knew that their thought affected vibration, affected the field through their vibratory resonance, that then affected the consciousness of the field of consciousness, the collective consciousness at the time. Excuse me, but also what comes after, because if we can tune into the truth that there is no time. The community of the Essenes, the famous community of the Essenes, a lot of this information that I'll read later is found in the Inconran, in the caves. So I'm going to move on fast here. So this is a picture, obviously, of the flower of life and of our interconnectedness. So our inner interconnectedness, mind, body, spirit, and all sort of forms, and then our outer interconnectedness and the points of light and the earth and beyond and beyond and beyond. I know you know this, but I thought it was important to put it here. So they were really the guardians of teaching. Somebody is coming back in. So they became guardians of these great teachings of the light through communication, through the central sun, and beyond, within, without, above, below. By the way, the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus are the teachings of ancient Egypt, the teachings of Thoth, the teachings of the Book of the Dead. So yes, so enough of that. I'm gonna bypass this quickly because I want us to be able to have a little bit of an inner journey. So the cosmic ocean of life, the sum total of life of all the planets in the universe, was called by the Essenes the cosmic ocean of life. And the sum total of currents of thought in the universe was called the cosmic ocean of thought, or cosmic consciousness. So quite a powerful remembrance that there is an ocean of thought, and is a cosmic soup of consciousness that affects all. Yeah, one of the sayings in the scrolls, I didn't put it here, but it talks about the seeding, the law meaning the truth. This law is seeded in the garden of the brothers for future generations. So that for me was so poignant as, embedding, recording into the field of consciousness, but also recording in the earth, in the electromagnetics, into the earth's energies, into the rocks, into the carvings of the temples, into the way they spoke out their truth is recorded in the waters of the river Nile, of the river Jordan, of all the sacred waters of the earth. So the seed of life is planted, and we become the seeders of this garden for humanity, for the regeneration of souls. A lot of souls went to sleep. A lot of souls are just waking and need a little bit of soothing. They may not reach the level of consciousness that could be attained in this time. The soul has its own timing, so it doesn't matter. But there are now many awakened souls, and so this is the truth that is alive in the field of consciousness, where we, all of us, humanity, all of the people that are out there, worried about various things that are in the media right now, and various situations that are present and alive in their own life. There's this great potential to awaken at this time through the light of the sun, through the attainment of attunement with the field of consciousness, the cosmic ocean of thought. So this is from the Book of Hymns, in one of the scrolls found in the Essenes location and in the Essenes community. One of the scrolls that they kept. Remember, I told you they were guardians of this wisdom. I just wanted to read this to you. So go ahead and get comfortable. Sorry, I spoke at you rather than with you. Go ahead and get comfortable and tune in. Maybe put your hand in a place that feels good. Maybe it's your belly, maybe it's your solar plexus, maybe it's just your knees or your heart. Just take a moment to just tune in. It was a lot of words, and I hope that you have received through the field, through my voice, through the vibration of my voice, a lot more than I have shared with words, because it's in the space between the words that we can access the wisdom through the vibration of the sound and certainly the human voice. So tune in with yourself. And I'll read this from the Book of Hymns, from the Dynasty scrolls. I have reached the inner wisdom, and through your spirit in me, I have heard your wondrous secret. Through your mystic insight, you have caused a spring of knowledge to well within me, a fountain of power, pouring forth living waters, a flood of love, and all embracing wisdom, like the splendor of eternal light. So this, beloved friends, I feel is the truth about Akhenaten. It is my own perspective and my own research. So as I said, filter everything through the light of your own wisdom, the wisdom of your guidance, the wisdom of your soul. And we've had a whole hour, so I will not offer a journey, but if you're interested in the journey, I suggest contact me and we can do a little mini journey with the group. So contact me if you're interested, and I'll put up a timing for us to have just a journey with this timeline. Thank you so much, beloved friends. I'm going to say goodbye and offer you my heart, my love, my blessings on this day. So much love. Thank you so much for being here. I can see some of you. So much love. Bye bye.